I'm Katrina Lynn, and I just was on the Keith Andrew show, and it was amazing. This is like my first kind of appearance on a radio show in quite a while, and it went really well. I love the fact of what he stands for, what the radio show stands for. It's raising awareness for people who have mental disabilities, and that we are not defined by that. We can do these things, and it's just amazing to be able to meet someone like that and to have a connection, and it's great. And I had a fun time doing it. I look forward to more episodes and seeing more interviews, and just definitely subscribe, watch. Like, it's great, and it is very inspirational. And those of you out there that do have disabilities, watch this, because you are capable of things. You can do these things. You can achieve your dreams. Don't let anyone tell you not to. And that's what this is for. And you can pursue whatever dream you have, and even in the acting field. I'm a freelance actress and graphic designer, model, and don't let anyone say, oh, you can't do this. You can, trust me. It's wonderful, and I hope to be able to look forward to more. Don't forget to subscribe and watch. I know I will be.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith Andrew, and you're watching the one and only Keith Andrew Network. Thank you for joining us. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Keith Andrew Network, available on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. I do apologize if it's echoing in the background. I don't know why it's doing that. But hey, you take it as it is until you get a studio. So for people who want to know what my show is, the whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, how I can sell them out to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities that never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. So prove them and sell them out to something. So hashtag break the labels. With that being said, the first question I want to ask you is, what can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and the type of work that you do?
So for me, my name's Katrina Lynn. I'm come from Seattle, Washington. I'm a freelance actress, graphic designer, model, a bunch of different things. And I actually have grown up with a learning disability myself. So my whole life, I had always, read a little bit slower, was a little slower than the other kids, cognitive things. And, I got teased a lot about it. So I kind of took that and used it to a strength. And I was like, what am I good at? I was really good at writing. I was really good at drawing, graphic design. So I took those strengths and I just went with it. And, it's been a long process, but to get to the point where I am now, if I didn't try hard enough, I would not be to the point where I am now. I still do freelance work. I'm not under contracted with anyone or signed with any agencies. I'm kind of just a freelance person. If somebody wants to have me for a job or something, I will say, okay, we work out rates. So that's kind of a good thing about not being signed to anyone, is I'm free to kind of just do my passions without having to worry about contract confliction, and it's awesome. And I recently moved here to the Massachusetts area about a little less than a year ago. And of course, pandemic, not much time to meet people. So I'm happy to finally be able to get out and to meet people. And I came across this network as well, and it's amazing to be on it. So thank you. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
No, absolutely. And it's amazing because, one, we have a similar background, and it's about what we're saying about disabilities. Labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be is approved by someone else or something. And with everything that you accomplished by being an actor, well, being an actress, a co-owner, and a graphics designer. But the one thing I do want to talk to you about that caught my interest was the graphic design. But we can always talk about that off the air. By some of my ideas. But what about that caught your interest?
I've always been into drawing since I was really little, since I could pick up a pencil basically. And I used those drawing skills. And in college, I wanted to get a fine art degree, but I knew people really didn't look at art degrees. You have to have some technicality behind it. And I liked doing stuff on the computer. I liked drawing things on the computer, coloring things on the computer. So I turned that into taking a graphic design courses. And I've created various logos, mostly for my husband's band, but various other logos and fruits and things, just little tiny things, websites here and there. And it caught my eye because it's something that's technical, but art. And then people can look at it and not just brush it off. They're like, oh, she actually has some technical side of her. And with the way my mind works, it is wired a little bit differently. So in doing the graphics online, it helps me to focus more. And that's why I love doing that. And it's just something that I kind of took and rolled with it and was like, what else can I do with this to make, me get some gigs?
No, absolutely. That's the biggest thing is that if you have the heart and passion, you're in the right place. Once you start having the attitude that, I hate doing this, I don't want to be here, whatever you build for yourself, you're going to say it's going to fall apart. Like, I have a horrible habit of doing things half-ass. I hate this job, and I don't want to be here. But you don't know who walks in. You don't know who you're going to meet. You could meet someone important, and when they see you with the I don't care attitude, down the road, you may come across the same person and be like, oh, I saw you at Toys R Us, and you had the I don't care attitude. Why should I hire you if you're going to be the same exact person over here? So if you are passionate about what you're doing, I had an opportunity to, not really an opportunity. You ever saw this thing came up where I had to do my show over? I had 372 episodes, and I had to do the whole thing over. But it was a learning experience. You're either going to take the experience, say, okay, take what you learned and do it better, or, be a wuss about it and get up and do something else. But I didn't want to do that. I said, this is what I want to do to the day I'm 6 feet under. So I did everything over. Originally, I was called uncensored, but that was the whole stupid thing. But I will get to that in a minute. But it's a learning experience. As you probably know, you have to promote yourself. You have to get yourself out there. You have to do everything yourself. And yes, and I'm not trying to preach to you, but yes, it's frustrating. You said sometimes you think it would be nice if I had someone in my corner. It would be nice if your husband was in your corner. I don't know if he is. I'm not using him as an example. Is saying he can point you in the right direction. He'd be your backbone. But at the end of the day, you have to show the world, I did this on my own, no help, no education whatsoever, and look at what we accomplished. You being a co-owner, and actually that's the next one on actually, but you're a co-owner, you're an actress, you're a graphic designer, and I think you're completely amazing. You are beautiful and you are amazing. And if someone looked at me and said, what do you do? It's kind of start off as a joke. Well, what do you do? Oh, I'm a talk show host. I'm a podcast host. So, with 1-2 years. Oh, let's see where it goes. 8 years later, 8.5 years later, 800 and plus episodes. So you don't know where your heart and passion is going to be. I had no education. No one ever taught me this or walked me through the steps. I did everything myself. And knock on wood, a lot of people say it's like a bowel movement. It's moving, but it's eventually going to take off. But that's not about me, but this is about you. What are you a co-owner of?
So it was actually a business that my husband and I inherited from my in-laws, which is his parents. And I had no idea that I was going to be inheriting this kind of business. It's a cross stitch business basically. So I kind of do a little bit of cross stitch. I have since I was a kid, off and on. That's kind of how I got into art a little bit too. But like we have other different types of things that we sell as well, and diamond paintings and other kind of trinkets. But it's interesting because it challenges me in both a good and a bad way. So it's something where I'm still learning how to do it, and I'm definitely challenged for sure because it's a lot of things that I don't know a whole lot about. And being a co-owner, you are responsible for all of your inventory and everything. So that's just super new to me. And we get through it. He helps me learn and everything, and he knows that I learn at a slower pace. And so he also has some learning disabilities as well. So I'm so thankful that he understands. And I mean, we've only been doing it since the beginning of the year. And so it's only been for like 6 months that we've owned it ourselves. And it's definitely a learning process, but it's fun, and it gives me time to do creativity. And we're actually in the process of trying to come up with a new graphic logo for our site, since we are no longer under the name that it's under. We're changing it to our names. And so we're trying to come up with something cool and kind of hip and everything for the graphic logo. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Absolutely. So the next question, well, actually, while we're on the subject, if you don't mind, I want to talk about disabilities. With everything that you accomplish, you know, for me, someone which I read and learn at a middle school to a high school level. If someone said to me, for an example, I don't know, you have to do a test. For me, if someone read it to me and broke it down and gave me a couple examples, it sinks in more. You can't just say, here's a script. And now I can't see it's a green screen, but here's a script, and it's kind of like, go read it. But if you take the time to learn and help me with it, be patient, I learn better. With your disability, do you feel that we're in a similar boat?
Yes, and it's also with reading and math for me as well. I've never officially had gotten any diagnosis as a kid. All the teachers would be like, oh, she's just ADD, slow learner. But it came out to where I'm actually on the autism spectrum. So my learning is a little bit different than others. And I feel like, it's not, I don't really want to classify it as a disability. How I put it is, we're like everybody else, just wired a little differently. And so I, always had trouble reading a little bit. I was always a slower pace. Same thing with math. If they're like, oh, read this paragraph, it would take me twice as long as the other kids. And then also doing book reports, it's like I couldn't read it fast enough because then I wouldn't understand it and I wouldn't be able to do the book reports about it. So, over the years, I've kind of just taken that and rolled with it and did the best that I could, but definitely got teased everything. And I mean, it got to the point where I was so good at actually writing, not necessarily reading, but I could convey everything I was feeling through writing and my art. And I actually almost went to be an English major. My reading level wasn't as what it should have been. So I was like, well, I can still play on those strengths, still do writing, and still do art. And so to this day, it's still everything I read it still takes me a little longer, but that's okay, because I mean, we're all capable of it. Just sometimes people take a little longer.
It's true. Now, a lot of people, like my mom always liked saying to me, "Oh, you're capable of driving a car." Yeah, yeah, well, do you want to find out? It's because it's kind of like, don't put yourself in a situation where it's like, yeah, I can drive, and if you're walking, you can like turn fast, and you can have your reflexes. See, if you're in a car and you make one mistake, then you're gonna, insurance, and then you have put your own life in danger. I'm like, if I ruin my own life, whatever, but I'm not taking responsibility for anyone else's. So why put yourself in a situation knowing you're going to fail? But it's kind of like, so I can't drive. Well, let me ask you. This is probably like a stupid dating question, but let me just ask you: if I was going on a dating site, and I said to my other to whoever going out was a girl, obviously, I'm straight, but I say to a girl, I can't drive. Do you think that's a negative? Because girls like to be drove around and everything. But do you think just because her boyfriend can't drive, do you think that's the reason not to date that person?
I don't think so at all. I'm actually that same way. I don't drive. I don't have my license for a good handful of reasons. Not that I haven't tried. I've tried, but obviously have failed in things. And where I lived in Seattle, there was so many buses to get to and from everything, so I really didn't necessarily have to. And plus, many people don't really drive downtown. But for me, that's not a deal breaker. If anything, it's like, oh, well, they understand. They are like, I don't drive either. And so it's nice to have that. And so for me, that would not be a deal breaker. However, I have been on the opposite end of that where I'm like, oh, I don't drive. I need you to pick me up, or what buses go to you. And then it's where they're like, oh, well. So for other people, it can be a deal breaker. For me, no. It's actually kind of nice to be able to have that connection.
Oh, thank you for being on my side. And it depends on where you live too. If you're in the city right now, the city's freaking wild west, and Cuomo and Blasio are not doing a damn thing about it. But if you live in New York City, you have taxes, and taxes. But you have taxes anywhere. You have taxis, you have buses, you have trains. But it depends on where you're living too. Where I live, you need to have a car unless you rely on public transportation, but it's either here or there. But the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, I want to change up the format so it's more fun and interactive. When you went to college, were you a study nerd or party animal?
I'd say a little bit of both, actually. I little tidbit fact, I actually got an offer right after high school from 17 magazine. They're like, hey, do you want to model for us? You have to spend hundreds of dollars, go to these classes, but do you want to be signed with us? And I was like, no, I rather focus on school. So that's kind of how it started, and I focused on school a lot. And I did go through a couple different phases, but I was that person that I was like, I can do both, and it was difficult. I will say that, but I got all of the party out of my system. I consider myself now like the chill, laid back person that just stays home a lot. So, but there's nothing wrong with that. I can focus on my art and do my things, but I was a combination of both.
Are you a fan of Futurama?
I am, yes.
So you probably know what I'm going to say. Fry's like, oh, I went to college too. And we was like, yeah, but 21st college was pretty much an expensive daycare center.
Pretty much.
I never went to college, but my brother was a part of, frats and fraternities and all that corrupt didn't work out. It was drama and all that BS. even though his one friend was punched in the face while taking a dump. And I find some funny story about that. But guys are stupid, obviously, especially when you're drunk. Were you a part of any fraternities?
No, I did want to. I wanted to go to like 4 years and be part of that, but part of doing that was taking SATs, which I knew I was never going to pass. I mean, if I can't even hardly pass math in elementary school, let alone middle school and high school, there'd be no way. So that just wasn't in my cards. So I did community colleges, but in one aspect, I'm almost glad that I missed those things because I have had friends that have been part of frats or sororities, and they basically said the same thing. It is just nonstop party, drama everywhere. It's really not worth it unless you're that kind of a person and that's what you want to do. If you just want to study and do your passions, they're like, you didn't miss out on anything.
No, I agree with you. We can always tell you a funny story off the air, but it's kind of like people don't grow up. But the other one I want to ask you is, did he ever do any sports?
A little bit. So I've always been into theater and like kind of drama that's kind of a way that I would express myself. Being the shy, awkward person I was with being teased and things, I would like to get in these characters. And it felt nice because I was like, I can be anybody I want to. And so I was always theater, and then I did some singing, and I got into a little bit of like track and field, not too much really. It was just kind of something for fun. And then I did some softball in high school. And when I got to college, it was a friend of mine, and she was like, let's take weight training together. And I was like, what's that? And so I discovered weight training, which I mean, it was fun. It was kind of a way for me to just kind of relieve my stresses of everything and just have that downtime, and plus you get fit. So that was my sports thing. And I will say, being a gamer nerd, Dance Dance Revolution was kind of my sport. So that I considered it as well.
Well, what about this? Let's do like a fun new game I came up with. When I look at you, and by the way, I'm not kissing your butt or anything. You're good, beautiful. But when I look at you, I can see you being the main star, supporting star. I can be. I actually thought you were a cheerleader because you do have that look. Um, I'm a track star. The athlete star. You could also be kind of like a nerdy, sexy nerdy librarian. When you go for acting roles, and people, for me, I always say you have the first 10 seconds to make a good impression. When you walk in, do they have their minds like, this is what you're going to do? Or do they like, oh, here we have some options for you? What is your acting experience like? What do you want and what has been planned for you?
Mostly it's, roles that people will send me to kind of read up on the scripts, to do auditions. And I usually look for either strong female leads, because that's kind of almost the opposite of me being the shy, quiet one. So in college, I did a film I was like a very strong, intelligent voice of an artificial intelligence computer. And so those are kind of the roles that I tend to seek out, not necessarily because that's like my forte, but it's kind of out of my comfort zone. So I look for leads like that, but also I prey more strongly on like the girl next doors, the nerdy ones, that is kind of like my personality. And when I go in there, it's like something in me just kind of snaps, and I'm like this like giddy like like, but it's in a good way. But in my head I'm like, oh god, they're gonna think I'm like too weird, too shy, but it actually ends up in a good way. So it's just it kind of depends on, I guess, if it's a specific role that they have, then I kind of try to get in that mindset. Or if I go in and it's a bunch of options, they automatically see kind of who I actually am. And then they're like, oh, well, try this one, or, you know, we like you as is. And that's kind of been my experiences. I haven't had, however, any experiences yet here in the New England area because of everything that had happened. So now I'm reaching out and trying to get gigs and things. So hopefully I can make a lot more connections here and, you know, hopefully travel in the near future.
No, absolutely. And I would love to work with you. You know, I was got to say that off the air, but extending my hand to you. I would love to work with you. But I do have a couple questions off the air. But the first one I want to ask you is, I want you to be brutally honest. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what was your honest reaction when you got the email? What made you say yes? And after being a guest, what do you recommend to anyone else, and how you feel?
I actually feel really good because, you know, like I said, I'm a huge supporter and dealing with a disability myself. I I love the fact of, you know, what you stand for. And I did the research and I was like, oh, who's this person? And, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. And so that's why I was like, oh, I'd love to hear more about it. And it's really good because it's like, you know, people that have the cognitive mental disabilities, even mental illnesses, we all are capable of doing whatever we want pretty much, and the world doesn't dictate who we are. Like, just because we have all these things doesn't mean we're not capable of doing them. I mean, I've gotten told by several jobs, oh, you're not this and this, and obviously in school, and well, here I am, I have a college degree, I did something with myself. So it's like, you know, it's great to have someone like you and a show like this because it gets awareness out there and it tells everyone that people like us, we can achieve these things. And for people that are wanting to start achieving things or have tried and didn't succeed, just to keep trying because they will get something. Everybody can pursue their dreams no matter what type of disability they have. And I find it very amazing and inspirational.
No, absolutely. Now, wrapping up the show, stay tuned. I do have a couple questions for you off the air. But wrapping up, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. And everyone who's watching, make sure to like, subscribe, share, comment. Old comments will be read on the next episode. Our Instagram names are on the bottom, so you can follow my beautiful guests. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Keith Andrew Network, available on YouTube, Instagram, and yes, we're on Twitter, but it's not called Keith Andrew Network. It's Keith Andrew 88, but we're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.